Today on Technado, we'll be talking with Dr. James Stanger from CompTIA. We're also going to look at some Windows 10 news, as well as a system that's still using OS 2 in a major city. That's all coming up on Technado, starting right now. Hello and welcome to Technado. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, joined as always by Don Pizzette. Well, I shouldn't say as always because this guy skipped out last week on a little vacation, but welcome back, Justin Dennison.
It's good to be back. Vacation was fun, except for the bout of food poisoning that I had right before I had to travel back to here. So that was fun.
That's fun. Yeah, it's always good to get sick at the end of your vacation.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that upside. It was at the end.
Yeah.
I just felt horrible during all of my homeward travels.
Great. Was it in a car?
It was.
Oh,
it was.
Fun. That's fun. Really stretch it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good times. Good times. Well, we have a lot of news to get to today. We also have an amazing interview with CompTIA's Dr. James Stanger. We kind of borrowed him from our Live Week presentation we're doing here at IT Pro TV this week. So we have an interview we did for Live Week, and we said, let's use that on Technado as well because it's amazing. So we'll be doing that, and that's going to be huge for Buzzword Bingo. Just a heads up because we did record that in advance. So
James is a buzzword machine.
Yeah. So get your cards ready. That's at go.itpro.tv/buzzword-bingo. Play along with us, and you'll be saying bingo before James is done with his opening sentence, I think. So, but we'll see what we get out of the news as well this week. So let's get to our first article. This one is at decrypt.co. Facebook reveals Libra. It's a monumentous new crypto to the world. Momentous.
I know, you slaughtered that.
I know. Look, I got on a plane. I was on a red eye from San Diego last night.
Is this in Spanish?
Yeah, Facebook. Peter had a stroke mid-sentence here. Facebook reveals Libra. It's momentous new crypto to the world.
Yes.
So this is the cryptocurrency we've been talking about that Facebook's been rumored to be giving us for a while, and they're calling it a stable coin.
So I didn't think this was going to happen. I thought, there were rumors that Facebook was going to launch a cryptocurrency, and I thought, man, this is just such a phenomenally bad idea. This couldn't possibly happen. I was totally wrong, and it is happening, and it's actually worse than I imagined. So I don't want to sensationalize. So let's try and stick with facts on this. So Facebook, the company that is under fire for collecting entirely too much personal information, is now in the market of creating a cryptocurrency. And if we look back at the beginning origins of cryptocurrency, the whole point was to make a currency that was not controlled by a government, that a government would be unable to manipulate, or really anybody would be unable to manipulate. So instead, you would have this non-centralized currency that was controlled by voting nodes and communications and all that mess, so that it couldn't be tampered with. It has been widely exploited by criminals for negative activities, but it did have a positive idea in the beginning. Why Facebook feels they're the ones who should be marshaling this forward is beyond me. I'm not sure. But I did take the time to read through the article and see some of the details, and I was just absolutely surprised at some of it. Did you guys sift through all the details?
I don't know if I sifted through all the details. I did. There is like a headline in here. We need to make sure that criminals can't use it. Yeah. Essentially. And I was like, how is that going to work?
You know how you do that? By tampering with it.
Oh.
Right? Like, the thing that you're not supposed to do with cryptocurrency. And
yeah.
so, there's no anonymity, none of that, because if you're going to be tracking criminal activity, then you've got to have visibility into it.
Something I do need to dive a little further into is this whole stable coin idea, right? Because cryptocurrencies are notorious for being like, oh, it's worth $6. Hey, it's worth 10 grand. Oh, it's worth $1. And that was in 3 minutes. So I'm trying to figure out how that works. Again, is this another one of those things where you have to go, let's just tweak it a little bit. Let's just, there we go.
Well,
we go.
This says it's a coin pegged to an underlying asset, which is designed to keep its price stable. So it's like, are we using the gold standard now for crypto?
Well, they haven't said exactly, and we'll see where that detail comes out, except I would be surprised if it is, because they have, if you look at the founding members that are a part of this, right? In fact, if you out there want to become a founding member, for $10 million, you can invest in the project and become a founding member and join the likes of Spotify, Uber, eBay, Mercy Corps. I don't know who they are. A charity. That's why I don't know.
Wow.
PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard. Now, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, they all deal in fake money. Well, I guess PayPal deals in real money. They connect bank accounts. But, credit cards are non-collateralized loans. This is going to turn into a financial podcast. But anyhow, the point is they deal with fake money. And so if we're pegging this to assets, which are actually non-collateralized, then it's actually not pegged really to anything. But I thought it was kind of interesting that it says they'll each share a transparent copy of a vast ledger. And somewhere in here, they go to talk about the governance. There's a quote. I'm trying to find it real quick, but here it is. It will have a Byzantine system of governance with each node participating in regular votes on key proposals, and it's intended to hold them accountable. Now, I actually have a bachelor's degree in political science, so I feel like I can at least speak with a small amount of authority on this. What that translates into is they're going to create a cryptocurrency that can't be tampered with by a government, and to regulate it, they're going to create a government.
Yeah, the Byzantine Empire.
So-
Yeah, that's what I was like, that was an empire, right?
Yeah, that's
So what's happening? Like, all those post-apocalyptic sci-fi movies where the world is run by mega corporations and stuff.
RoboCop.
Wally.
It's
Yeah.
OCP. They're building
OCP,
megacorp.
yeah.
Here it is. And if they control the currency, then we've really given up. So this is a phenomenally bad idea. It's not going to kill anybody, but it's still a bad idea.
The only redeeming factor, because they released some parts of it to open source, so it's written in Rust, so that made me happy.
Run fast.
It'll be fast. It'll be relatively, hopefully stable. But I don't know. Maybe I lack the trust of large corporations having hands on currency. I don't know. This almost seems like isn't this kind of how Zimbabwe happened with Mugabe? And he just kept printing money, and then the inflation got out of control. I don't know. This makes me very hesitant to go anywhere. I'm not a cryptocurrency fan anyway, but that's just me.
We'll see. There could be more details that come out of this in the future that totally redeem it. I just feel like the details that come out are going to be that when you buy their Libra crypto coin, it's delivered by Ed 209 robots.
And he falls down the steps.
I would go the other way too. I would target my cryptocurrency to criminals and try to compete with,
Hey, the margins are great.
We're going to see every time we talk about Bitcoin in this podcast, it's about which city is paying to get their data back or which company is paying to get their data back in Bitcoin. So, let's make it easier for the criminals and really make that money.
I feel like that would be fraught with how do you turn that into real money that's spendable, right? Here's my criminal coin. How do I make this
Criminal coin, I like that
actual
alliteration.
money?
Good ring, yeah.
Yeah. And then the feds just start raiding these exchanges. Be like, do you have criminal coin? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Well, let's think about that
Yeah.
as we move to our next article here on Slashdot. Iceland's data centers are booming. Here's why that's a problem, and I'm assuming it's because of the ice.
Yeah, sure. Well, very close though. The cold weather, right?
But they can keep the server rooms cold, and isn't that why they're? Was it Microsoft that sunk a data center basically?
Yeah, it's a
keep it nice and
phenomenal
cool?
idea. I think it's great. And when I saw this headline, I was a little surprised because when I hear about data centers in Iceland, I'm like, man, that's a great industry.
Yeah.
They can stand up these data centers. It's naturally cool. They said the average temperature in Iceland, or at least in this particular city, is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty darn cool. Most data centers are kept at about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So if the average temperature throughout the year is well below what you're seeking, you need airflow, but not air conditioning, and that saves a ton of energy. So this is all good as far as I can tell. But the headline says, here's why that's a problem. And I thought, well, man, I want to find out. And in my mind, I'm thinking the real estate's a problem. Iceland has a pretty limited amount of real estate. Also data, getting network connectivity. These are the things that I'm thinking of. But it turns out that there is a carbon credit system set up in the EU of how Iceland exchanges carbon credits with other countries. And they're saying that this system has a bit of a flaw in it where companies can double dip and say that they're buying carbon credits from Iceland, but Iceland is somehow still counted against the EU, so it ends up getting counted twice somehow. I kind of lost track because I didn't really care about carbon credits. So
Then why are we talking about this story, Don?
well, the reason we're talking about it is how awesome it is that you can build data centers in places like this. Like Microsoft sunk one into the ocean. It was big news. I think people having data centers in Iceland, any cold area like Greenland should be killing it right now.
Well, there's a lot of land opening up there.
Yeah.
As the ice recedes. So.
Well, and as the volcano in Iceland erupted, makes more land. So people say you can't get more real estate. You can in Iceland. So
yeah, how do you buy like the new land? It has to be. That's a great.
I imagine you have to wait a while to make sure it stays there.
True. Yeah, you got to wait till it cools. You put your flag in it, it just melts.
But have you guys ever been to the website Iceland Wants to Be Your Friend?
I have not.
I think you and I have talked about this.
It is awesome. Hey, Peter, you would appreciate this as someone in the marketing biz. I believe it's IcelandWantsToBeYourFriend.com.
Is this the tourism department?
Yes.
Okay.
So it wasn't originally. Apparently, a couple of developers created this web page because they were trying to recruit other developers to Iceland. Not a lot of people pass through, and so they created this web page where it's actually the island of Iceland writing you a letter and saying, "Hey, I want to be friends with you. I think we could be buddies." And it's funny. And so it was a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. And then the official Department of Tourism latched onto it. And after I read the site, you know what? I wanted to go to Iceland and not necessarily live there, but I'd like to visit someday.
Visit your friend.
Yeah, but the whole island is my
The
friend.
entire island.
And they
Well,
have those
that's
weird
nice.
little birds. I can't remember what they're called. They have the strange beak. You ever see
Puffin?
those on the beach? Puffin? That sounds right.
Is it puffin?
Is it a?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're like
Aren't those in like Alaska and stuff too?
I have no
those
idea.
are like they're similar.
They're like our
to
northern
toucans.
penguins. Yeah.
Like they kind of have like a toucan look.
So either way, if you think about building a data center in Iceland, there isn't a problem. Get on it and invite me over.
I like our segues every time today are just when we realize we've gone way too far to the left. And then we're like, all right, so puffins. All right, let's head over to Tom's Hardware now for our next article. Laptop.
Cybernetic puffins.
Yeah, exactly.
It is
That'd be cool.
puffin, by the way.
Sweet.
Yeah, puffins on Iceland.
There we go. All right. Laptop prices will jump 19% due to tariffs, report claims. Well, at least it will be the Chinese government that pays for all of those. Tariffs,
Yes.
as I understand science and math,
Well,
global economics.
we hear a lot about things like these tariffs, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, the tariffs have had literally zero impact on my life so far.
It's impacted me. I had to get new brake rotors, and they were steel.
Oh,
And they said, by the way, our prices have gone up on these. They could have just told me that. And
That's how they play it off.
yeah, I don't know. It's
Our profit
unobtainium,
margin has
they
gone up
said,
this
is
month.
what they had to use. So yeah.
Unobtainium.
was this was at a mechanic shop?
Yeah. Right
Yeah,
across
I
the street. The one out
I'm
the
gonna
window.
go with. They probably just said that.
Yeah,
They're
they were like,
"Bro, we have heard
tariffs."
some about tariffs. Prices
Well,
up. Prices up.
In this case, the Consumer Technology Association, the CTA, which is a trusted organization, not just a tabloid, they did a study, they did some research, and they found that if things stay the way they are, if the tariffs all go into effect, laptop prices will increase by up to 19%. There are some other scenarios. They listed some other hardware like tablets and cell phones are going to go up a smaller percent. I think phones were only 14%. Drone pricing is going to go up, which I care about not in the least.
But Buzzword Bingo does.
Good point. Wah.
Big
I hope I didn't
times.
just throw it away.
Times ahead.
Either way, prices are going up, which means if you're in the market for a laptop, you might want to buy one right now. But there are also other effects. Apple is already starting to move. They're planning on moving like 30% of their phone production over into Europe. And so,
But they'll still raise their prices.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, they're already pretty high, but they can
Pass
survive
the
it.
savings on to us.
That's the passion of your customer. But companies are starting to move their production out of China. And I'm curious to see where that goes because there's two arguments, right? One argument is, hey, we can trust our hardware more because it wasn't made in China. The other argument is China does a pretty good job building stuff. If we start moving off to these other areas, are they going to do as good a job? Quality might drop. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But either way, the prices will be higher.
By the way, if you take a look at the photo that they used on this, do you have the photo there with the two boxing gloves?
Yeah, it's at the top.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that I thought this story would have been about
Rocky versus Drago.
well, no containers, because every story
Oh,
about,
it does have
about
shipping
Docker
containers.
has shipping containers on it,
Yeah.
and here we are.
Whose Docker is bigger?
Yeah, but okay. Let's head over now. Did you get containers?
I
by the
did,
way,
I
on your-
did.
I don't have it on my board this week. All right, on howtogeek.com, Windows 10's Linux kernel is now available. So is this the Microsoft Linux distro we've talked about?
It's super close.
God, we're almost there.
Super close. So we talked about WSL2 the other week, right? The Windows subsystem for Linux 2, where Microsoft is actually managing a Linux kernel, and it was going to be soon to be released at that point. It is actually released now. If you're on the Windows Insider Preview build and you're in the fast ring, then you can actually have access to it right now. How to Geek posted the instructions on how to get that installed. You're a PowerShell command away from having that one available. Remember that WSL2 is actually built on top of Hyper-V versus the original WSL that didn't require Hyper-V. So it's got to install a little bit of extra stuff to get it up and running. But if you want to jump in and test it, mess around with it, whatever, you can actually do that right now.
So I need to be Insider Builds fast ring.
Right.
I always get swimmy headed whenever I'm like, now hold on a second. Am I
All these
on the
criteria.
fast ring or am I don't know. I'll just stay with my
So
Mac.
I'm a cutting edge kind of person. On my home computer, I'm actually on the fast ring, so I have WSL2 on my home computer now. On my work laptop, I'm not, and that's because fast ring, it's stable-ish, but not if you're doing mission critical work like the Technado podcast.
Sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
The last thing we need is things exploding in here. Actually, viewership would go through the roof if Don's computer exploded.
Wow, that's on fire.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad that Don's prediction has almost come true.
Almost, very close.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right. Next, over on ZDNet.com, Windows 10. We're sticking there. Windows 10 yields more secrets. Microsoft plan to split OS from shell takes shape. The Windows 10 preview shows signs of Windows OS separating from the shell in line with Microsoft's modular plans.
Before we get started, was there weird wording in that title, or was that just me?
Yeah, because it should have been Microsoft's
plan or Microsoft plans.
Yes. Yeah, because I
right,
slowed down there.
it is either they possess a plan to do this,
split OS from shell,
or
it should be Microsoft's plan to split OS from shell takes shape.
I think they're just saying that the Microsoft plan to split the OS from the shell takes shape.
Yeah.
So I think it is actually grammatically correct, but it's just weird English.
But shouldn't it be possessive? Whatever. Anyway, what are we talking about?
The point being that when you launch Windows, there's a shell that you interface with, right? The Explorer interface. There's various components to it, like the Action Center, the Start menu, the little icons sitting on your desktop. All of that stuff is parts of the shell. And it's all tied pretty heavily into the underlying system. That's why when you install like Windows Core, if you do a server core install, even though they tell you it's command line only, it still boots to a GUI and just launches a command prompt window. It's not truly a command prompt only. There's still that GUI sitting there. Well, Microsoft is breaking away the pieces to fix that. And the reason they're doing it is twofold. So one is to better support that server side. But the other side is they still have visions of making it where Windows can run on tablets and phones and car stereos and so on. And to do that, they each have distinct separate needs for a GUI. And so they've got to break it apart from the core. So if you thought that Microsoft killing off the Windows mobile platform last year was the final nail in the coffin, they've proved once again that Microsoft's mobile dreams are like a zombie, and until we destroy its head, it's just going to keep going and going, and that's exactly what's happening here.
And I feel like I should have zombie on my bingo card,
it isn't,
but
though,
I
is it?
don't have it on there.
Windows zombie?
No, I was looking for it, but
zombies. The threat is real.
Yep, zombies.
All right, well, we're going to stay on ZDNet here, and we're going to stay talking about Microsoft. Microsoft warns Azure customers of Exim worm. Microsoft says Azure infrastructure stops the worm's self-spreading component, but VMs remain compromised. So my virtual machines have real worms.
No, not real. Well, it depends on how you define real, I guess. But Exim is a popular message transfer agent, MTA. So it's an email server, right? For sending, not like you wouldn't check your mailbox on it. And it's being run on a number of virtual machines that are spun up in the Azure environment. There is a worm out there that can exploit Exim and spread. It's been patched if you roll out the patches, but many people haven't. So what Microsoft has done is they've taken kind of an odd stance on this. They have set up the Azure network where it could detect the Exim spread and stop it from spreading. But if your machine is infected, it stays infected. Like Microsoft doesn't go and clean your machine. So they're actually sending out a warning to everybody that if you've got virtual machines running Exim in Azure, you need to patch it. And that's good advice for people running Exim anywhere, because this isn't just an Azure problem, anywhere. But they did make that announcement of, normally we don't mess with the traffic coming out of your systems, but this time we've got to stop it from spreading between customers and things like that. So they are putting barriers in place for that.
So at the risk of opening Pandora's box, it's like a vaccine. I have a little bit of the disease
Or
still.
at the very minimum, a quarantine with like a decontamination.
It's more like when you have
airlocks or
chickenpox. You
something.
still have the chickenpox virus.
Well, they're protecting their own assets, not anyone else though. Like you could still spread outside of Azure. Well, actually, they might be stopping that too. Yeah, so I guess it would be more of a quarantine.
Yeah, quarantine.
Okay, I'm anti-quarantine.
Either way, some people are a little bit worried about this. That now you've got a cloud provider who is actively tampering in the traffic coming to and from your systems. But I don't view this as an issue because it's really no different than firewalls. If somebody's sending me a denial of service and Microsoft takes care of that for me, I'm not exactly going to complain about that. And that's kind of what's going on here by stopping that worm from spreading.
So they're still saying that if you have one of these virtual machines set up with it, you should wipe that, or just, hey, it's fine because it's not spreading?
Their recommendation all along for all their platforms has been, if you're infected with a virus or whatever, you need to format and restore from a backup.
Okay.
So that's what they never say clean the virus. Even Windows Defender and stuff, when it finds a virus and quarantines it and stuff, if you read the actual suggestions, it still suggests first format, reinstall from backup, and then later on it says we can quarantine it. That might work because they don't know if it got everything.
All right. I will do that. I'll check all my VMs right after this. Now let's go over to TheVerge.com. Samsung's security reminder makes the case for not owning a Samsung Smart TV. Run a virus scan every few weeks, it says. So I think I have a Samsung Smart TV at home. So they're saying I shouldn't?
So we have 4 TVs in my house, and they're all Samsungs. So every one of them. We had a Toshiba that we threw away and swapped out to a Samsung last year. So we're an all Samsung house. Samsung pretty much makes all their TVs smart TVs these days. Like no matter how cheap they are, it's still a smart TV. Their smart TV operating system, which I believe is called Tizen or something like that, it has started displaying messages. And I've actually seen one of these on my TV, where it tells you it is still a best practice to run an antivirus scan on your TV from time to time. And they actually do provide a virus product available for a subscription fee that you can use to scan your television. And so what they're doing is they're warning you about how their operating system is not particularly secure. There have been some known exploits on it, and it's a problem. So yeah, run a virus scan on it.
Wait a minute. So I was with you up until the point to where I bought a Samsung Smart TV. I don't have a Samsung Smart television.
What?
But yeah, I know, right? But I have to pay for the virus scan that could keep my smart television from being compromised, like Peter's camera that he
Right.
continues to keep, right?
Yeah, that's basically it.
How much is this, like a monthly subscription, or is it a one-time fee?
I never even considered paying it. I think it's like $4 a month or something. I could be totally wrong on that though. So, yeah, I don't remember it being a huge amount.
For those of you currently watching my camera at home, by the way, if you turn it all the way to the left, you can see my Samsung Smart TV. So you can maybe see when that message pops up as well.
Sweet. I know for me, like I don't use the smart TV functionality because it's slow. We have a Roku on each TV, and so I just don't plug the TV into the network and I don't connect it to the wireless. So since it's not connected, it's basically air gapped and it's not a problem. I did still see the message though telling me about this, which I thought was pretty funny. But if you do use the smart TV functionality, just know it's like any other IoT device. It's most likely not getting updated. It's most likely not secure. And you should.
So you're not connected to the network on your TV?
No.
Then how did you get the message?
It's a smart TV. It's like some scheduled maintenance thing that pops up on its
Through
own.
the web.
Hmm?
You're connected.
No, it's just its own little operating system. You can turn your laptop on without it being connected to the network,
Well,
right?
sure.
And
But
it can
wouldn't
display
get
you
updates
messages
about malware and things.
Oh, I don't think this is an update. This is just like a scheduled message that pops up. Because I haven't seen it on all my TVs. I just saw it on one. So I think it's like a timing thing.
All right.
Oh, you do bring up a good point, though. Like maybe I should probably check. Maybe that one is connected to the wireless.
Yeah.
Maybe
One of the kids.
someone in my household could have connected it to the wireless, and I wouldn't know it. See, that's another challenge. Here I am thinking, oh, I'm all secure, and maybe I'm not.
Just one little plug in the back, and it's over. All right.
well, that
Dun, dun,
got
dun.
dark.
yeah, we needed sound effects for that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, where's that little thing? Yeah, that's not in here anymore. All right, that's probably for the best. All right, Target. Yeah, they're having another bad week here over on USA Today. Which wow, that's still around. Thought that was only on hotels on the floor that you have to scoot to the
McDonald's.
side as you roll it. Yeah, at a McDonald's. Is Target still down after long waits and store closings? Nationwide register outage ends. I heard that they were moving to a bartering system, and you could just bring in sheep and stuff and get your toiletries and all the things you needed.
So this headline rolled around. I was not at Target, so but we do shop there as a family. When I heard that they were having an outage, at first it was just a couple of stores reporting, but it turns out if you were at Target on Saturday, 100% of the stores had their cash registers go offline for 2 hours. The cash registers didn't go completely offline; like they could still scan things, but the payment processing was all screwed up. And so
So they could take cash.
My understanding is they weren't even doing that.
Okay.
Most of the stores just shut down and said, that's it. We're not doing transactions for 2 hours. Many stores would send an employee to the front door and not let new people come in. Many people abandoned their shopping carts. Some people waited around, and apparently they were able to do some transactions, which I imagine were the cash ones. I was surprised that they didn't have some kind of a backup. Like, I've been to stores where they have some kind of issue, and all of a sudden they whip out the old carbon copy credit card swiper. But I'm guessing, and I had never thought of this, with the new pin and chip movement, that they probably can't do the old card swipe anymore. That's probably just not an option.
They should switch to Bitcoin.
Or actually, I
Or
was thinking
Libra.
about one of my credit cards doesn't have raised numbers on it anymore.
Yeah, I've got one card like that too. So they would just scan your name.
Yeah. So in that scenario, I mean, they were down. Now, I thought this might be an attack, but the small little bit of information they've chosen to release, which is not much, says that it was actually just a technical issue on their end. They've put out some white papers on how they use Kubernetes to manage a continual deployment cycle across all 1,800 of their locations. And the theory that's floating around is that they pushed a bad update out and it messed up their payment system so they couldn't process. Once the IT team was able to track that down, they just pushed out the update. It fixed everything, and they were back on after a 2-hour outage. So not a hack, not a breach, but just a really bad day for the engineering team at Target.
Whoops. Yeah, I don't go to Target very often, but I get anxious just being in there during a normal time when the registers are working because of the lines. So I can't imagine just like things shutting down. It is. I'm trying to figure out, like, even if they, like, why would they not take cash money? Like, would it possibly be because they were afraid of not like keeping those transactions and it would jack up all their inventory or something? Because I know when I worked in retail, at the end of the day, you would send out all these polls, and that would update your inventory and reconcile it against like a central database of inventory. So I guess that could be a giant issue.
So I have a theory on this. It's not. I do not have the facts to back this up, so take that with a grain of salt. But one of the anecdotes that I had read about was people were saying that they could check out, but in one case, like a guy had 10 items, and it took almost 20 minutes to get the 10 items to scan in properly. So I think what was happening is all the registers were going into like retries, and so the network was getting slammed. The database servers were getting slammed. So they're kind of effectively DOSing themselves. And so just being able to ring up a total to generate a receipt was becoming a nightmare. And in the olden days, they would break out the paper ledger, but I don't think most people can do math anymore. And so I think paper ledgers are out.
Abacus.
Yeah.
Adding machine. And like, there we go.
If only they knew somewhere where they could buy some calculators.
Well, they couldn't because the system was down.
And
yeah, but you expense those.
Just went over to their little office aisle and grabbed.
That would have worked. Yeah. Do they have old school,
adding machines
registers and stuff too? Yeah. All right, let's go over to AppleInsider.com now. Cellbrite says it can pull data from any iOS device ever made. The Israeli mobile device forensic company Cellbrite proclaimed on Friday that it can break into any iOS device, including those running iOS 12.3. Now, was this the same company that they turned to for the San Bernardino incident?
It is, and allegedly, right? Because that was never publicly announced.
Okay.
But if you remember the San Bernardino shooter, he had the iPhone 5 or 5S that was locked. The FBI went after Apple for it. Apple said no, so they went to court, and it was going to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And at the last minute, the FBI said, never mind, because
don't need it anymore.
somebody unlocked the phone.
Yeah.
And the rumor was that it was Celebrite. They had a physical device. And then they started, some of these devices were actually being sold out to police agencies. You could buy them. They were, I don't know, $1,500 or something like that, and you could open phones. But it was limited in the types of phones that it could pop. And Apple has since then taken several steps to prevent that type of an attack. Several steps that have actually been kind of annoying for CarPlay users. But either way, if your phone is locked and you plug into CarPlay, it's a total pain in the butt right now. But that's my own problem, I guess. But Celebrite's big announcement on Friday was that they have a new device that they've already been selling to law enforcement that can open any Apple phone running any version of iOS. All of them, regardless of whether you have Face ID, Touch ID, I don't know, Tongue ID, whatever thing it is you've rolled out on there.
I'm sorry.
All the you don't use that.
For some reason, that makes me think of was it Kung Pao?
Yeah.
Yeah, where his
yeah.
tongue's a little. That's how he IDs his phone.
Tongue
So,
ID, it keeps you safe and keeps your phone clean.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just,
I mean, you're sick all the time,
Yeah.
but
Nonstop.
yeah.
You've read the stories about how much fecal matter they say is like on your phone and your remote control, and
Have you guys seen Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
And there's that scene where Rob Schneider is in the food machine, and it's like a recycled food machine, and it's saying, recycled food, it's good for the planet and okay for you. And so it can be, the Tongue ID. It's great for your phone.
yeah, is every tongue unique?
I don't know.
I'm making this up as I go here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to look into this.
But to back up on
Yeah,
a more
yeah,
serious note, do I have to be a verified law enforcement agency to purchase one of these?
Ooh,
In
great
theory.
Hmm.
Although
Do they take Bitcoin?
So this particular article
Libra.
mentions that you can actually buy some of these. They've been sold on eBay for as little as $250. Now that's the extent of the statement they make. So I haven't actually seen these on eBay. And is that a legitimate one or just a knockoff? I don't know. But they're saying that there are people going through back channels to get these devices. It's an Israeli security firm. The U.S. is on good relations with Israel, but a lot of other countries aren't. So it might be in their best interest to sell these devices to just any old person. I don't know where that's going to end up, but they at least say that they're selling to verified law enforcement agencies only. But I would just mention that, like, the Iranian Guard is a verified law
They
enforcement
are.
agency.
There you
So,
go.
how you define that varies greatly.
But I think they will also take your finger off to put it on the scanner.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to it's supposed to detect that, isn't it?
If the
Like if you're in a
Like
stressful
if you don't have blood
situation?
pressure?
the warmth. Or
No, I
like
think
if
it's actually
cold.
blood pressure, isn't it?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you don't have.
Yeah, because that's they already have the, even if you don't use it to unlock or anything, you can do the little heartbeat thing, right, and send the heartbeat.
Hmm.
So I suspect, yeah, they're probably looking for pulses.
Can they tell if your face looks anguished on the Face ID?
Yeah, they wouldn't know if you were being like actively waterboarded
Yeah.
while your finger was put on the Touch
Sure.
ID.
Yeah,
so,
the finger is moist.
I don't know if this is true, but yeah, just found one on eBay.
How much?
$999.
You the high bidder?
You can buy it now.
That's a buy it now price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you buy it? We'll try it out.
Why don't you buy it?
I have the
Try it
company
out.
card. You want the company card?
I feel like this. So Justin's not with us anymore. Yeah,
Like
we
you started a new business, cracking iPhones.
I feel like if we bought one,
Set up
we'd
a
get
mall
a visit
kiosk.
from the FBI
Oh,
or
I'm
something,
sure.
wouldn't we? What do you? I mean, is there anything? I'm curious.
This
Can
is
I-
the kind of
can I pull that up
this
on
is the
my
kind of
laptop?
exposure Technado needs.
Actually, can you Slack me that link? I'll pull it up on mine. 'Cause I know you're not hooked up to the camera, so we'll look at it. But I'm curious if you buy. There's got to be some kind of terms
If
on that.
Justin is arrested by the FBI live on Technado,
Oh.
viewership
We got to save that for Sweeps Week.
through the is there sweeps on the internet?
Every week is Sweeps Week.
Okay, you should have it in your.
So
in
I
your
guess we don't have to
Slack
save it.
now.
We can do it right now. Let's see. Did
This is
you
exciting.
throw it?
I just sent it in a DM.
Oh, see, this is the problem with
See,
Slack.
yeah, we have Slack
Now I
and
got to figure out how
Don
to
doesn't
use
use
Slack.
Slack.
And here we
So-
go. Okay, all right. So I'm pulling up our eBay auction here. So
There
if
we
you
go.
want to buy one of these, it doesn't look as cool as the one in the
Well, this might
article.
not be
but
the
that-
new one. Oh, the
well,
second picture.
That's
looks
that's
like
the
it.
same picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Celebrate $999
You know-
Where's it
Universal
coming
with
from?
case and cords. It comes to the power cords. Like that's a good deal.
It says item location is Indianapolis.
So it's already in the U.S., so you don't have to worry about customs. That's good. Touch phone data transfer machine.
Yeah.
Item powers up to the start screen. That's all they're willing to verify.
Next thing suggests the operating system needs to be installed.
Oh.
So I'm buying a broken
Well, wait.
machine.
Now, they're likely selling. You can probably just go and download the OS, no problem. Like this is probably how they're making it legal. Like I can sell this
Just a
device
piece of
because it
hardware.
doesn't actually work.
It's like a Lotus Super 7 that doesn't come with an engine, and then you put an engine in it. That's the only way you can import. That's very specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, the little Lotus.
I'll bet
Actually, a
that's
Lotus Elise is like that. You have to like put a Toyota engine in it or something. You can't buy it in the United States. But if you put an engine in it, it's a kit car, which means you're all right.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Don is adding it to his watch list right now.
Add to cart.
There you go. All right, let's head over now to the New York Times, nytimes.com. Hit by ransomware attack, Florida city agrees to pay hackers $600,000. And so I feel like we were just through this. Well, it was Baltimore that chose not to pay.
Right.
But now this Florida city has decided it is in their best interest to pay. And it's luckily not Gainesville where we're located. And that was the first thing I checked, but it's Riviera Beach, Florida.
Yes, and so this is when the hackers have won, right? Like the city of Baltimore chose not to pay a $250,000 ransom. Now they are facing upwards of $12 million in damages they're trying to overcome to get the city back online. Baltimore's still not back to 100%, and it's been almost 3 weeks now. So Riviera Beach, they were hit by ransomware, and after a period of I think just 2 days, the board did a vote, or the commission did a vote, and they've decided unanimously, hey, let's pay it up. Pay
This is
$600,000.
$18 million for Baltimore. Is
Oh, they're up to 18 million
so
now? It was
that's-
12 million last I
That's
checked.
probably what they saw when they made this
You
vote.
know, faced with a decision, 600,000 versus 18 million, that is an easy decision to make.
Yeah, 18 million, but the high ground.
If you can guarantee that they're gonna like unlock stuff, right? You may just
You
give them
don't
all the
know.
Bitcoin and
You
then
don't know.
deuces.
Yeah.
Here's hoping,
Yeah.
right?
But also in this article, was it this article or did I read another one where at the same time they also voted to do like a massive upgrade of IT
Should
infrastructure?
have done that vote first.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the thing, like, remember, and this is the lesson that we can all get from this, is, not that we should pay the hackers, but that probably for well under $100,000, they could have put in a phenomenal backup system to back up all of their machines and their data. And then when they got hit with ransomware, you're just saying, like, we can't avoid it, right? So let's just plan for that. That if they get hit with ransomware, they just shut everybody down, restore all the machines, and they're back in business. It would have been far, far less expensive. You got to plan for these things.
What about insurance? Is that an option for cities like this?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it would be under cybersecurity insurance, but you have to show you did your due diligence. If you were screwing around like Baltimore was and you get infected, the insurance company's going to say, look, you asked for this.
But
Yeah, I
question-
think that was actually in the article that even if you have insurance, if you've shown that you haven't taken steps to
Gross
keep things up to
negligence.
date,
Yeah.
and they'll just go, "Oh, sorry."
Well, here's the question: does the insurance pay the ransom or the 18 million?
Oh, they would pay the 18 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pay the 18
They
million.
don't pay the ransom. No.
Okay. They don't want to be part of the problem.
And if you've never dealt with cybersecurity insurance, keep in mind that there is a deductible, and it's not like your car where you get your bumper hit and it's a $500 deductible or whatever. These deductibles can be, it could be $1 million, right? And against 18 million in damages, that's still a steal, right? But it can be significant.
My friend called me the other morning and was asking me about this. He was like, "Why don't we have a bunch of Bitcoin?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was talking about this article.
Just to be ready for
And
it.
I was like, he was like, "We could cash it in." I was like, "It's really hard to acquire now. We should have done that 10 years ago when you could have, Don's laptop would have had like 4 Bitcoin by the end of the day." And he was like, not what? So it's interesting because I think that's another thing that causes issue. They go, "Oh, it's just 65 Bitcoin." No, it's $600,000.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about buying Bitcoin ahead of time just to have it for the day that you get ransomed, take whatever money you're about to spend on Bitcoin and spend that on a backup system that can be taken offline. Online backups are this happened to a company not too far from here that they had backups, but they were online backups. And so when the ransomware hit, the backups got encrypted too. So that's bad. Those old tapes that people make fun of, the LTO tapes and stuff, they're great because you pop them out of the tape machine and now they're safe. You've got that data. So you got to plan for that. It's not expensive to build a backup solution, even for a massive enterprise. You just have to plan for it ahead of time.
And I guess you could do, some kind of cost-benefit analysis there and say, our financial records, our public records, things like that, those are the only things we need to back up. Who cares about individual computers?
Yeah.
That's left to each and every employee to do that. So it still seems like the best way to go, the cheapest. And I mean, even if you hired someone just to do that, that's still way less than $600,000.
Absolutely. And you really should have somebody do it. Somebody needs to be watching the backup logs, because I've seen that too, where people invested in backups, they got it all put in place, and then one day they go and they need to use it and the backups don't work. And it turns out that like 3 months before, a backup job got hung, and then it's just not been backing up for months and they didn't realize it. So you gotta take care of your backup.
So, moral of the story: if you have a parking ticket outstanding in Riviera Beach, sit tight. Just wait and see
you'll
if
probably
they
be
do
fine.
pay, if they get the data back before you go in and pay that, because you wouldn't want to pay it when you find out everything was wiped anyway. All right, let's head over now to our final story before we get to our interview at tedium.co, which I almost thought was medium, but it is not tedium. It's just a swipe away. Vintage technology has powered the innards of the innards, wow, of the New York City subway system for decades, and sometimes it surfaces in interesting ways. This one's for you, OS2 fans. Well, that is one heck of a headline. And OS2 fans, well, that would be Mr. Don Pizzette, because as you can see right behind him, we've got OS2, OS2 Warp, OS2 Warp Connect, Vision 4.
This article made me smile because I loved OS2, and it is a basically now defunct operating system. So they were talking about how it is used in the New York City subway. In the article, they actually have a screenshot down here. Let me find it. Here it is. OS2 version 1.3, one of the original versions of OS2. And if you look back on my shelf, I do have each and every version of OS2. And you might notice I don't have a box that looks like this. I actually do. Justin, can you snag Microsoft Bob out of the way? Microsoft Bob is also classic, amazing software. But I don't have version 1.3 because I'm hardcore. I have version 1.1, which is the first version that included a GUI. So, although it was still optional. Right there, yep. Way in the back. Yep. So OS2, I mean, it's been dead for 20 years, but it is still in use in the New York City subway system at this very second. If you go down, as 5.7 million people do each and every day, into the New York City subway system, when you are buying that ticket or swiping that token or whatever it is that you're doing, you're actually being processed through OS2 machines, because they were deployed by the Metro Transit Authority, or whatever they're called, MTC? I forget what they are. We don't live in New York. But whoever runs it.
It's MTA?
I think it's MTA.
Yeah, it is MTA.
All right. So when they deployed all this, they invested tons and tons of money, and they knew the systems needed to run for a long time. So they looked at the OSs that were available at the time, and they said, which platform is going to be the most rock solid and last us the longest? And this was back, in the Windows 3 wasn't even out yet. So they looked at Mac OS and Windows, or it was really just DOS, MS-DOS back then, and other types of programs, and they selected OS2, and that's what they went with. They deployed it. It's in place and active to this very day. So I had fun reading this article. It was neat to see that. I worked at a bank not too long ago. Well, actually, I guess about 10 years ago now, and the ATM machines had just been upgraded from OS2, because that was the same thing there. And they actually have a screenshot in here of an ATM machine running OS2. Where is it? A little bit further down here. Here we go.
There you go.
A Suncorp ATM that's crashed. And so it's showing its OS2 Warp desktop. That was really common for a long time. And those machines, if you ever had to support them, it was kind of frustrating the way you had to type things in. Like the IPv4 addresses you had to type in hexadecimal, which was super annoying. But they were rock solid, still in use today. So it shows that there's some interesting use of software.
And it's probably like there's not a lot of OS2, developers or support people around. You're probably in pretty high demand at this point.
So I thought a similar thing. There was an offshoot called Arca.
Yes.
Arca OS, that is a derivative of OS2. So there might be a little more of them than you would anticipate.
So, when IBM end-of-lifed OS2, it sat idle for a couple of years, and then a company called Ecomsoft bought the rights to be able to support OS2 and started releasing it under the name Ecom Station. And for 10 or 12 years, you were able to actually buy updated licenses, but they didn't have access to the source code. They had permission to redistribute and update, but they didn't have the source code, so they really couldn't change the OS. And now we have Arca OS, which has picked up the new contract. I think the company is actually Arca Noe or something like that. And same thing, they don't have the source code either, but they're allowed to redistribute it and update it. And so they're trying to do things like patch in proper 32-bit support, patch in 64-bit support, make it work with USB, right? Because OS2 never had a USB subsystem. So they're patching all that stuff in, but it's all kind of hacked together. So the nice thing about OS2 is always its stability. And now the current offerings, they're neat, but they don't have that same stability. So
I was just looking at screenshots for Arca OS, which is just OS2.
I thought you were buying OS2 on eBay.
No.
Maybe. No?
I'm going to stay away from eBay since I was already on a page that had
You're
the
on the
Universal
list.
Memory Exchanger or whatever it was.
hey, if you want to install OS2, all the discs are in the box over there.
So those boxes
yeah.
are full.
Actually, many of them are floppy disk, though. The newer versions are CD.
Are these your boxes, or are these ones you bought on eBay for decoration?
Most of them are mine. The version 1 that I have, I did have to buy on eBay because it was one that was only given to IBM engineers.
Oh.
And I think I was maybe 16 years old when that came out, and so I didn't have access to it.
Limited edition. Well, that reminds me, looking back there too, you have 3 or 4 Red Hat things on the far left. I sent you guys a picture the other day driving down to the airport in Tampa for a conference we went to of a plumbing truck. It was Red Cap.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this like the country version of Red Hat Linux? But what did you say?
What's
Pat?
funny is I forget what I said. There is a Red Cap. There's a Red Cap software company. It's for health consents, like consenting.
Oh, so it has nothing to do with Red Hat.
I've got it pulled up here on my computer.
No, but it has the same logo.
There it is.
Very similar. It's a painter's cap, though, or a baseball hat instead of a fedora.
Well, I did, because we've got our new van that's wrapped, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I kind of was looking at it as I walked by. I'm like, wait a second, that's Linux. Oh, nope, that's plumbing. Red Cap Plumbing.
Plumbing and air.
So check them out. Red Cap Plumbing.
Dot something.
Tampa. I don't know. All right. Well, we do have an interview as promised now with Dr. James Stanger. So basically, we're doing a live week thing here at IT Pro TV this week. So be last week by the time you guys are watching this. But we had a CompTIA day where we wanted to bring in Dr. Stanger's the Chief Evangelist. Is that correct?
Chief Technology Evangelist.
Technology Evangelist. So brought him in to kind of just give us a state of the industry, talk about what CompTIA has been up to, and we said, man, we got to get that interview over here on Technado. And not only was it insightful, and I felt like, I mean, he put things into terms like it was easy for me to understand, and as not a technology expert, so to say, but he also hit a lot of these buzzword bingo words here, so that's going to be pretty exciting. But we brought Wes Bryan in, and so it's Don, Wes, and I with Dr. James Stanger. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, but right after this on Technado.
Are you a career changer or a budding tech pro who's looking to start their career in IT? I'm Wes Bryan, and along with my fellow IT Pro TV edutainer CHEROKEE BOOSE, we've just shot a new show just for you. Each week, we'll dive into topics to help you launch your career in tech. Watch how to get started in IT on YouTube now. Just head to youtube.com/ITProTV to watch, and look for new episodes every Saturday at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
Welcome back to Technado, and now, as promised, we are joined by a guest all the way from the other corner of the country, up in Washington. We have Dr. James Stanger with us from CompTIA. How you doing?
Doing great, man. How you guys doing?
We are good, I think. And so just to kick things off here, we know you. You've been here in our studios. We've met you at some different events. But maybe for those that aren't as familiar with CompTIA and CompTIA's mission and where you guys fit into the tech world, why don't you give us just a little bit of background there?
You bet. We're a trade industry association. That's why we're called CompTIA, and we represent the IT industry. And we do a tremendous amount of research. We also, as we represent the industry, we do advocacy in Washington, D.C., for example, India, Japan, and elsewhere. A lot of people would know us through our education programs, through the training certification content that we have. Gosh, I'm A+ certified, Network Plus, Security Plus, the list goes on. And so we do a lot of upskilling because that's what the industry has told us to do. So there's a bit of an overview of CompTIA. I think we have about 2,000, a little over that, members that are company members, as large as Apple and Dell, let's say, as small as the managed service provider down the road.
Yeah, and I know we just got back from a couple of military and DoD kind of trade shows where we're talking to people that every single one of those people that touch a computer is going through CompTIA A+ and or IT fundamentals or different things like that. So definitely something that a lot of people have probably run into. So now I'm curious, in your role specifically, you are the Chief Technology Evangelist, and that's one of those things that could mean anything.
Just about anything.
So what is it you say you do here, to quote Office Space?
Yeah, I like that. You bet, Bob. And what's the quote from Office Space when they ask him if he's been missing work? Well, I haven't exactly been missing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my job as Chief Technology Evangelist is to represent the IT professional. So I talk to a lot of IT professionals around the world. I just got back from South Africa and Europe and the UK. I guess I can mention Europe and the UK separately now. Anyway,
I think, soon at least. Yeah.
Something like that. And the idea is that I go around and talk to IT professionals as well as executives. So, for example, while I was in Europe, I happened to spend some time in Romania, of all places. And in Romania, I was able to talk to the CIO over the entire country of Romania, for example. We had some good conversations. While I was in London, I represented CompTIA at the InfoSec Europe event. So I talked to a lot of IT professionals as well as IT executives, ask them about what the trends are. They spend a lot of time asking me about what the trends are, and it's fun to do that.
So I'm curious what that sounds like, and I know a lot of this is probably done in confidence or off the record communications or whatever, but when you sit down with somebody like the CIO of Romania, talking about high level things like technologies that are coming down the road, that makes sense, but do you find that they're willing to sit down and talk about like what's actually happening within their country or the needs that they're actually experiencing, or are people pretty forthcoming with that?
Yeah, they really are. For example, I'm trying to remember what his exact title was, the Secretary General CIO of Romania, I think it was. And what he is interested in is finding ways to more efficiently upskill his people, right? And by his people, I'm talking about the people who work for him, as well as the people in Romania, because he has he obviously has direct say over what the skills that the IT departments that support the government do. But he also has major influence over how IT education works in, for example, Romania. And I have these conversations with various people in various countries. And his major concern is this. They have really good internet bandwidth there. They do in Romania. Some other countries I've been to, though, they have problems with it. But the other thing that they're really interested in is they do a lot of offshoring, as it were. In other words, countries offshore to Romania. And so they're very interested in getting the right skill set so that people continue to offshore to Romania and continue to employ their people. They have strong internet, strong English skills. Being in Europe, they have good connection culturally, and as long as they have the right skills, that means that they can work for the banks in the U.S. or Japan or elsewhere to, for example, monitor their security.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, actually. You kind of said my background, I used to work for a web dev company, and it seemed like over the time I was there, it shifted from people offshoring to India to people offshoring to Romania. And
right.
I had no idea why, but I guess cost of living and
Mm-hmm.
They've put a focus on making sure that they have really strong connections there.
they have a good centralized planning. Whether it's good or bad is another question, I suppose. But good centralized planning in terms of their IT education, and so you have companies like SecureWorks, for example, and others, and they do a lot of SecureWorks does a lot of monitoring of Fortune 25 banks and things like that in terms of security, and they found there's just a really nice skill mix there in Eastern Europe.
You said that CompTIA, advocates for like the industry and stuff, and you also said the current IT professional. What is CompTIA's definition of the current IT professional? Because we do know that the landscape is changing. How does CompTIA see, that current IT professional today?
Kind of see them as the part of the creative class, if you want to put a big circle around it. That's a really big circle too. But the idea is that, the IT professional traditionally was that coder that was in the basement somewhere, or traditionally was what I call the plumber, a person who was over the Windows systems or the mainframe back in the day, or the Linux and the cloud systems today, and you kept them in the basement, and then you made sure that those two, the coders and the the coders and the IT folks never talk to each other. Now, so we've been talking about DevOps for years now, but what we're seeing with the advent of the cloud, what used to be shadow IT, and we all know what shadow IT is that on your bingo thing?
Buzzword Bingo. I don't know.
We don't have that one.
It's not on there?
It's a good one, though.
Well, you'll have to add it, though. It's because it's a buzzword. It's really not shadow IT anymore, because it used to be, somebody in marketing sourced an IT solution. We're not aware of it. The CIO is not aware of it. Time to panic, because it's all about control, right? And what we're finding now is, because there's so many IT-based technologies that need to be used in various parts of any company, I don't care if it's a small one or a real big one, we're finding that it's really something that requires IT professionals to be much more creative. And your average IT professional now is somebody who's, wears an IT and a marketing hat, for example, or IT and even a sales hat. So we're seeing a major change there.
Now, one thing I've heard you talk about in the past is the skills gap. And you mentioned that just briefly when we were using the Romanian example. Since the role of an IT professional has changed so much with things like DevOps and this blurring the line between on-prem and cloud and all of that, are we seeing where we're getting better traction on reducing that skills gap, or is it getting bigger? What does that look like?
It's a great question. Even though things are being automated, or as auto magic things and things put in the cloud, no, we're still seeing. Your question was, are we seeing the skills gap remain? It is in fact getting larger, and what we're needing is more T-shaped individuals. And there's another buzz phrase. I'm a walking buzz phrase generator. The T-shaped individual is somebody who simply has a very deep skill in something, and you could call that IT. And then it's somebody who also has good broad skills, whether it be time management, what we will call creativity. I tend to call it deeper thinking, or higher level thinking. And so, no, we're actually seeing a real need for more skills. And we're seeing that a lot of training entities are not spending the time on the hands-on side of things that they need to. We're seeing training, and I'll call it training entities, whether they be delivery partners, we'll call them internally at CompTIA. But it's the whole idea that the skills that we need are what I call a second peak of skills. I think most training institutions will get people to a certain peak of knowledge. Sometimes it's theoretical. The second peak comes in two ways. One, I would argue, when you're doing hands-on learning. That's why with my office hours with James, why IT Pro is so cool. You actually show people working at these things rather than lecturing them, kind of like I'm lecturing you now. And the second thing I think is important is some sort of mentor, somebody who's done this before. And that way you're moving from the typical rote, memorized kind of knowledge to something that's really practice-based. And I think that's the key, one of the keys.
I want to mention real quick, because we've mentioned buzzwords a couple of times. We are playing Buzzword Bingo here. And if you did not get your card yet, head over to go.itpro.tv/buzzword-bingo to pick up your card and play along with us. But Don, I believe you had an actual question.
Oh, I've got tons of questions. One thing that we used to always hear from people out there was if they were in a different career, a non-IT related career, they looked to IT as this like limitless possibility, right? If I can get into IT, there's tons of jobs, there's a lot of availability. In really just like the last year, I've started to hear some doubt in people's voices where they're hearing about things like you mentioned automation, right? That when we have ML and AI being mentioned in news blurbs all over the place, I think that there's starting to be a fear that people have that maybe these IT jobs aren't going to be around that long, or maybe there's only going to be programmer type jobs. So as far as the job market is concerned, what do you see it looking like going forward? Is that true? Is it a shrinking market, or is it growing? How does that work out?
Great question. You're going to probably have to restate that because it triggers me to talk about various things. Because yeah, it's funny. Is AI going to be a force multiplier? Which is, there's half of the futurists say that AI will be there to help you do more work and it won't replace you. The other half is no. Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to show up and terminate your job, and we're all going to have to, if we're lucky, we'll all end up with what, the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, that is, everybody will be out of a job except for like 7 people, and those 7 people will institute worldwide will institute a universal basic income to keep us from storming their lawn or whatever. And I'm being a bit facetious here, but so it's a great question because machine learning and artificial intelligence isn't coming. It's here. It's been here for some time. The funny thing about AI is that as soon as it becomes a reality, and as soon as it actually becomes implemented, then in the public mind, it's no longer AI anymore. It's just, ambient. It's just, what is. So a couple of things. I was in India, to give an example. I was in India talking with the people who are the bosses and the bosses' bosses, and I think even the bosses' bosses of the tech support people, that if you have a broken Dell computer or a broken Dell service, get to that later, you end up calling these folks in either Bangalore or in Hyderabad, one of those two. And these are huge campuses. One has like 4,000 people in it, working every day, shifts, on shifts, and the other one has about 7,000. And the folks that I talked to were over the UK and Europe technical support, and also US. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because they basically were having very frank conversations, about what their help desk tech support needs to look like in the future. Will there be one? They were putting everything on the table, right? With the fact that things have moved from break fix years ago to more service-based kind of things. And one of the conversations that we had, and it was, at least from my perspective, a fascinating conversation, because these guys were in the room and it reminded me of when I was getting my PhD and I had to sit in an oral defense of what I had written. And I sat in a room with a mob of people and they just sat there and beat me up for an hour, right? And in a sense, it was like that with India. It wasn't antagonistic in any way, shape, or form, but very challenging. They'd say, well, what are you seeing, James, as far as the cloud? How about security? What about help desk? And one of my answers was, look, if you have your help desk people reading a script, if a question comes up and then suddenly they're actually reading off the script, those guys are going to get automated. There's no question. So yes, there are jobs that will go away. If your job is based on repetition every day, it's going to go away. There's no question. And you don't need AI to replace that. You can do that with a self-help page, which is one of the things that Dell is doing. But what's interesting is Dell has been hiring more tech support people than ever before. They're just expecting them to do more, and they're expecting them to learn more. So artificial intelligence is disrupting various entities. When I say entities, parts of the IT profession. Another thing that I'm seeing in terms of AI and machine learning, last year when I was at RSA 2018 San Francisco, it was interesting to see that because very rarely was machine learning or AI mentioned. The year before that, in 2017, it was not mentioned at all, really. This year, I would say about a quarter of the stands, we use machine learning, we use AI. I find that quite a shift. And there's been a lot of questions. I was talking to a guy from MasterCard who he argues that it's not just help desk folks. In fact, he said he thought that there's more complexity with a lot of help desk. He was been a pen tester for years. He felt a lot of pen testing and a lot of programming can be automated. So the idea is that we need more people, but there is what I call a leftward shift, or a northward drift, depending on how you want to look at this, in terms of the skill levels. You just need to know more.
You mentioned RSA, and for us, we were there in 2017 and 2018, and the big buzzword there was threat feed. Like everything was about a threat feed, and people felt like they didn't necessarily need the on-staff security professionals if you had a threat feed that was telling you everything you needed to watch out for.
That's a great point. Yeah, they've been trying to eliminate the IT professional forever. I mean, we're a cost center, right, to most folks.
Absolutely.
So it's a good point. Vulnerability management applications, Nessus, they were going to replace pen testers 20 years ago. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Don.
Yep, but staying on the topic of security, though, I think everybody acknowledges that's a growing industry that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So for people who are interested in getting into IT, security is a huge opportunity. CompTIA has acknowledged that too with the launch of several security-related certifications over the last couple of years. So have you seen, obviously there's demand in the industry, but as far as people getting into IT, have you seen a good uptake in that, or are people excited about the career?
We have indeed. People are looking for a pathway. Most companies these days are looking for two things when it comes to security. First of all, I'll say three things. They need highly skilled individuals. That means they need a pathway that's authoritative to upskill those people. We did a survey, and other entities have done surveys asking people, hey, when I say people, organizations, how do you upskill your people? And they are absolutely worried and terrified about how to do this because they don't know how to do it sustainably. So here's the deal. It's a growing industry, but the cost can't continue to grow. The reason why we got in further into security, because we've had Security Plus since, 2002, I think, earlier than that. But the reason why Security Plus has taken off and why we've added things such as the new Linux Plus, but why we've added Pen Test Plus and CISA Plus is because organizations need an authoritative pathway to go down and to manage their costs. I'm a firm believer that it seems to me there's been another security gold rush over the last few years. There was one back in 2000, 2003. Remember that? Even after the dot-bomb bust. But I think the main thing is companies are looking for a way to sustainably grow their security presence rather than keep spending tons of money on security and still seeing the same hacks happen over again. So there has to be a sustainable, there has to be a responsible way to move forward with security. And that's why the industry keeps telling us to create this pathway, these programs.
And on the topic of pathways, like for somebody just getting started in IT, for us, it's usually easy. We recommend the A+ certification. It's a wonderful place to get started, or IT Fundamentals if they're or IT Fundamentals Plus if they're absolutely just getting started. Those are easy. But when somebody comes to us and says, I want to jump into security, it's hard sometimes to divert them and say, well, you got to learn at least a little bit first before you jump in. Nobody's going to hire you as a pen tester when you have zero experience. So is prior experience turning out to be a challenge? Is that partly why there's so many jobs available?
It really is. I mean, yeah, people want to stampede into security. They want to, jump into CISSP or they want to jump into Security Plus. And it's like, if you don't know your endpoints, that's to me what A+ is. You could look at A+ as the help desk tech support cert, fine, or you could look at it as the endpoint cert because it teaches exactly how IoT devices work, mobile, all the way back to PC and even further back. The idea is that networking, if you don't know your networking protocols and how they work, you can't afford to have those gaps. And what we're seeing is the people who've previously stampeded into security saying, oh, I'm a pen tester because I know Metasploit, which doesn't make you a pen tester. They've realized they have to go back and fill in a lot of gaps.
Yeah, and going back even just like 5 years, programming was the big sexy IT career. You had movies like The Social Network that came out that glamorized it. Wait, I can get drunk at work and make a ton of money and my company doesn't have to be profitable. And now we have Mr. Robot, so security becomes the new career. Do you have any guess as to like what might be the next one? Is it going to be AI? Is that a career people can actually get into?
I think there's going to be the next type of career is going to be more integration oriented. And by integration, we're seeing so many interesting technologies come in, whether it be blockchain, whether it be AI. And I don't think that there are going to be too many companies that will say, get your blockchain here or get your AI here, right?
They're trying.
They're trying. And again, you can play that whole, bubble game. I call it the bubble game. I've seen people in the industry kind of, surf. I'm going to mix my metaphors in a sense, surf from bubble to bubble, right? It's not what we're trying to do here at CompTIA. What we're trying to do is to create a proper groundswell of a proper sea change, as it were, to keep a water metaphor going, of people who have the right kinds of skills. And so the kinds of things that we're seeing is, as technologies, whether it be back in the day IPv6 or Linux or the cloud, or again, things such as blockchain, et cetera, come in, we need people who know how that stuff can properly fit in and be used. And it's not, I think gone are the days of that massive new, technology that everybody can just easily write in on. Companies, they need to do this in a cost-effective way. And I think what you're going to see is an integration kind of play, more and more. It's, to me, it may not sound really cool, but it's definitely mature. And I think that's what we're looking for.
That sounds kind of like my story. I wanted to jump right into security, and I was advised that, hey, you have to learn the basics first. And that's my question. How do some of these topics and trends that you see, how do they affect CompTIA's mindset for their core training? We've always said the core training is there. How does that affect the core training?
Well, core training, for example, you have in A+ now, you'll see that things such as programming databases, it sets the stage for understanding all of these different elements. You see it sets the stage for things such as AI. We lay that proper foundation or core. Right, it's a good way to put it. We also have these micro courses that I'm working on, and these micro courses are things that basically make it possible for people to intelligently work in a lot of these emerging technologies. For example, with AI, you don't have to be, in the same way you don't have to be a car mechanic to buy a car, right, in an intelligent way. We're finding that we need to educate people on how to intelligently actually put to the test claims that AI or machine learning is in a piece of software. Well, if you're buying a piece of, it's called security orchestration, right, automated response software, SOAR software, if you're buying software that has AI in it, well, what kind of algorithms are being used? What kind of machine learning machines? They call them machines. There are about 4 of them are being used. 1 or 2 of them really have applicability for pattern matching when it comes to security. We see a lot of companies will say, oh, we have all 4, as if having all 4 algorithms makes it better. It actually doesn't make much sense. So my point is, with our core learning, we're giving people the sense, the ability to understand all of the different elements of these emerging technologies, either in our core certs or in our machine learning offerings. Because that way, we're finding that because technology is moving so much faster than I think even a few years ago, companies are kind of casting about and going, look, I'm losing my common sense understanding of all these technologies. And our job at CompTIA is to kind of replace, I shouldn't say replace, but to renew kind of a common sense look at how technology works to see how it all fits in properly.
One challenge that I've come up against is the media, and I don't want to sound like Donald Trump attacking the media. I mean that the media does have a tendency to sensationalize topics.
Oh my gosh,
and
yeah, it's
present
terrible.
them in a way. So, I mean, blockchain sounds super awesome according to TechCrunch, and whichever security solution I pick, I know it'll be better if it has blockchain in it. According to them. So, with CompTIA, a lot of what the association does is lobby work. We work with governments, work with people that are actual decision makers at a very important level. Do you find that it's a big challenge kind of competing against the media message that's out there, or are you finding that most leaders actually understand, well, all right, it's actually, there's a whole real world underneath this that's a little safer?
As soon as we show them the depth of the knowledge that the average IT worker has, and show them from an industry background what CompTIA has, they usually calm down. But there are all those kind of media messages that we've kind of touched on. For example, all IT is programming. There's that. Anytime you talk to people, I've talked to people in the state of California. I've done hearings in Washington, D.C. I've done work with the Pentagon, and a lot of the policymakers right away, they will default to, okay, so when it comes to programming, it's like, well, wait a minute, programming is just one of the pillars. There's several others. So that's one thing that's been very helpful. When it comes to emerging technologies such as blockchain, one of the things that I often do is talk about the Gartner hype cycle. And the Gartner hype cycle is just a lot of fun. And most people kind of misread it. They're like, oh, well, that's the hot topic, and I've got to learn all about it. It's like, well, just hold off, because the hype cycle is basically where there's some sort of triggering event. Then the technology gets known and it gets hyped up and it solves everything, right? Cures cancer, the common cold, the whole bit. And then after a while it drops down, and then it's basically persona non grata. Oh, it was overhyped, it's ridiculous. And then it moves on up into I can't remember, that's the trough of disillusionment, which I love that phrase. And then it moves up into what they call the plane of productivity, which is their way of saying companies actually realize what it can really be used for. And it's in that plane of productivity where CompTIA, we spend our time along a lot of that hype cycle, but we try to do a lot of de-hyping, and then we try to do a lot of practical, here's how it really has applicability. And for example, with blockchain, I think over and above Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I think it has a real applicability in supply chain management and smart contracts.
Did that do it for you there, Don? I know.
No, I'm very close on my buzzword bingo.
Yeah, Bitcoin was a big help for Don there.
So, Bitcoin is fine. I just did back in RSA 2018. I did we had about 120 people gathered in a room, and we even created a blockchain manifesto about, the issues there. We talked about the greater than 51% attack, which has actually happened since. And we talked about how blockchain, as useful as it can be, it also adds to the, here comes a buzz phrase, the attack surface in regards to security. In other words, it's just yet another thing. Back in the day, Linux was going to solve all of our security problems because it was so much better than Windows. Well, I'm a huge lover of Linux, a big fan of open source, but it's part of the attack surface, just like anything else. So you have to take a mature look at it. So with blockchain, it's been fun to see people's perspectives. I invited for an IT Pro webinar we did. I want to say it was last year, probably about June, probably a year ago. And we had a guy from Microsoft, and we had a guy from Dell come on. The Microsoft guy was all about blockchain. Cryptocurrency is where it's at. It's there to help stop race conditions, and that's where it's all at. The guy from Dell was like, no, hold on, it's all about really supply chain and smart contracts. It was really fun to see them go in there. It was kind of a, what's that one? I can't remember the movie suddenly. Two people go in, one person comes out, with Tina Turner back in the day. Was that
Max Beyond Thunderdome?
Yeah, it was Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah. Holy cow. The fact that you know that, Wes, is a little frightening.
Yeah.
So it was
here.
interesting to see the debate happen there. And of course, as blockchain matures into something that is just in the background, in the same way that IPv6 is in the background today, and Linux is in the background of so many things, from cloud to storage, you'll just see it find its proper place.
Now, you mentioned the Gartner hype cycle, and I know like the Gartner Street process, and a lot of these are designed to help us evaluate whether a technology is actually ready for a company to invest in it, so to make smarter decisions. And I know by the time a technology makes it into like a CompTIA certification, that it's typically at that point where it's now safe for companies to deploy it. But you, in your role, you have to look forward. So do you even bother with those processes? I mean, because you just have to look at everything, right?
That's a good question. One of the things that we're seeing is that because these technologies are happening more quickly than ever before, I was going to say more faster, but I usually have better grammar than that. They're entering the scene more quickly than before. Used to take them years. I mean, when was cloud, the first term cloud, first adopted? It was in the 90s, the term, right? Well, we didn't see cloud computing really talked about seriously until when, folks? What, 10 years ago? Right?
Yeah, we didn't even have a consistent definition of it. I remember joking about it in the 90s about cloud could mean anything you wanted.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And there's a really fun rant, I think, from what's his name, Larry Ellison, talking about what the cloud is. Just Google it. It's a fun little rant. He's at a party and just kind of, it's funny. But the idea is that, and we really haven't seen proper implementation. And I would argue proper implementation of the cloud the last 3 years, I would say, 3 years ago, is when really all of the talk ended and people started implementing it. And so to the point about, it's fun to always look forward and think about these new kinds of technologies. We are noticing a couple of things. For example, with AI, we just did a really cool series of releases, research releases here, was it last week or a week and a half ago, about artificial intelligence and about how it's really being used in the enterprise today and the foundational skills that are necessary. So we're noticing it at one of those things that we noticed is that because these technologies are happening on the scene much faster and they're disrupting job roles much more quickly than before, we found it was necessary to talk about, to talk about where AI is really being implemented and to kind of separate that from the chaff of all the hype that's out there.
Now, you talked about having to look forward, and you mentioned Linux a moment ago, and how much you like Linux and open source. And so I'm curious because Don's had this prediction. I don't know if it's a prediction or if he's willing this to happen.
It's going to happen.
But he's had this thought that within the next year, I'd say, because he's said that a few times, Microsoft will come out with its own Linux distribution. So I'm curious your take on that.
Well, I just did an office hours with James on the WSL. It's the Windows subsystem for Linux, and that was pretty cool. And right now, they've, in other words, the idea is that you can bring up PowerShell, type in the word bash, hit enter, and if you've got the WSL installed, it'll go into whatever version of Linux you've grabbed from Microsoft's marketplace, as it were, right? Whether it be Ubuntu, I think you can put Kali in there now. There are CentOS, or a bunch of them. But I think it's very possible to see that distribution come up, because the idea is that Microsoft will want to put in certain functionality that its small medium business base, which Microsoft excels with, wants. Right? Red Hat does a great job with the enterprise side of things. So does Ubuntu, right? But that small medium business base, Microsoft really has a great window into that base, and that really could mean that it could have its own distro. I'll tell you a story about a prediction I made. Oh, sorry, Don, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when James and I happen to be in the same city at the same time, we usually talk and geek out about Linux. And you mentioned WSL. Have you seen the WSL 2 they announced?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
So WSL, they kind of cheated, right? That there's not actually a Linux kernel in there. They just reverse engineered all the calls and translated it.
Yeah.
In WSL 2, it is an actual Microsoft-supported Linux kernel that's updated through Windows Update. So, they have everything except for the ability to install it on bare metal. I just feel I don't see why we have Windows Server 2019 is kind of what it boils down to.
Well, it's funny you say this because it had to be 30 years ago. I was talking with a few friends of mine. One was a total Mac head, just loved his Apple Mac stuff. Another one was a Novell guy. Right, back this is when Novell still existed, right? Another one was a total Microsoft person, and I came in. I was the relative noob, and I had I had a mentor who loved his Unix systems, right? Linux, if it existed, was still pretty academic, and they were all talking about the great stuff that they had, and I just went, look, I've experienced Novell, I've experienced Microsoft, I've experienced Mac. I said, all those operating systems suck. One day, they'll just go back to Unix like they're supposed to. And they all just wow, James, you're completely on drugs, never going to happen. Well, Novell became a Linux company a long time ago, whatever they are now, right? But that's Linux, right? Mac, Apple, how long ago was it that they scrapped that lousy operating system and went to BSD?
That was right in 1999.
Was it 99? I thought it was a little later, like 2005 or something.
I believe it was right at the turn.
So, okay, so they scrapped theirs and went to not Linux, but to BSD, which is its sister or brother. And then Microsoft is now doing that. I remember saying years ago, Microsoft should say, we have the best shell, the best interactive, GUI in the world, and let all those guts go back to Unix. That's what I said 30 years ago. Let it go back to Linux where it belongs, man. I could see it. I could see it. Oh, and by the way, there was OS X back then. Now look what IBM's doing. They're buying Red Hat. So,
yeah, that's a big one. I'm confused on that. I know that's not the point of this interview, but I'm confused on that one. Because are they going to kill off AIX?
Great question. In a sense, AI, I think a lot of banks have stuck with AIX because they see it as secure. It has that history. I think they'll just move them over to Linux eventually.
Yeah, I used to work at a bank, and a lot of our ATM machines were still running OS2 years and years after OS2 was long dead, and that was just because that was what was on the ATM machines. So sometimes government finance, they'll stick around with old technologies.
Well, but that's also kind of a SCADA ICS issue in a sense, right? The upgrade path or the lack of upgrade path, from ATMs to X-ray machines to I always call them windmills. What is it? Turbine, electricity Germans. electricity turbine generators. What do you call them?
Turbine?
Turbines.
The windmills,
Turbine.
yeah.
Anyway, whatever. The whole idea is that most of the devices that control the generation of things, whether it be sewer systems or robots, there are still XP systems running around. Now, to your point, I'm not sure they can go back as far as OS X, but I've seen it time and time again. And I've asked, well, why don't you just upgrade it to Windows 10 or something else? They're like, there's no upgrade path for these things. Anyway, sorry.
So just for those of you just tuning in, we are talking with Dr. James Stanger from CompTIA. And a few minutes ago, you started to make your own prediction, and I'm always curious to hear this, because I want those things written down in stone, so like you can look back and make fun of the people who are like, that iPad is never going to take off or anything like that. So what can we look back and it is a dumb name, and I said that at the time too. So what can we look back and make fun of you for in 2 years?
Oh, probably my inability to make any sort of useful prediction at all. I think you're going to see in a lot of cases that kind of security, what do you want to call it, gold rush, go away, and people are going to go, look, why would I keep wanting to spend the same amount of money or more money? Usually it's the same amount of money for no return. I think you're going to see a real change in the security mindset, not towards governance, not towards compliance. They've tried all those sort of things. Compliance can work, by the way, if it's done right. But anyway, the idea is that you're going to see security, a lot of really interesting innovation, both in terms of automation and AI, but it's going to be towards responsible kind of metrics-based approaches. I just think it's not enough to say, oh yeah, we have a great pen testing team, or we have great listeners, the blue team, right? You have to have them work together to create really good measurements and metrics. And you're going to see a lot of tools come out that will have enhanced measurement and metrics, so that people can go in and say, look, we bought this 3 years ago, and look at how we've not increased our security or how we have increased our security. There has to be a proper reconciling, not ROI. I hate that phrase.
Ooh, I love it though for Buzzword Bingo.
It doesn't make any sense. There has to be a proper reconciling of the resources that we have. You're going to see a major movement towards that. And I'll go off on a rant on the whole ROI thing. Security, we steal things. When I say we, I do a lot of security work. Security professionals steal terms and steal concepts all the time. Almost every single tool that is used in one way or the other has stolen things from programming or whatever. A firewall, what is a firewall? Well, it's that wall between a building that if one building catches on fire, the fire doesn't go to the other building. That's what firewall started. Or some people say in the automotive industry, it's that thing that sits in between the engine compartment and you. So if the engine compartment burns, it doesn't burn you. We steal terms all the time, and we stole years ago ROI in terms of security. And it would have been better if we'd have stolen something else. Anyway,
just any term. So
any old term would have been better.
All right, so predictions are hard, but before we hit the end of the interview, I want to make sure that we do cover one thing, and that is CompTIA works with a lot of people that are IT professionals that are looking to move forward in their career, or just people who are looking to become IT professionals. So what advice would you give to people out there that are maybe intimidated by the sheer breadth of topics or focus areas that we hear about? If somebody's just getting started or trying to make this their life career, take care of their family, achieve their goals, what advice do you have for them to get started?
When it comes to getting started, the first thing is start playing around with the technology that you have. I've talked to people lately in the last 6 months from Japan to South Africa, the United States, Romania, and India. Some of these folks have limitations in terms of bandwidth. They have limitations in terms of the tools that they have available. First of all, start playing with the technology as much as you can. Work with friends. The second, get a mentor. And that's what I mean by work with friends. That mentor, it can be somebody in the classroom. It can also be an instructor, but it can be ideally an IT worker. If you want to do a material change in your situation, and I've seen people do this constantly, the main thing is make the time to learn various technologies, and don't worry about the stuff overwhelming you. Learn one bit at a time, or maybe I should use the word bite. at a time. Sorry. Learn that element, and you'll find that as you learn one specific thing, you'll suddenly go, well, I don't understand this because I have no context. And so just start asking lots of questions, and you'll get more and more context, and you'll be able to build your knowledge. And after a while, people will start coming to you. That started happening to me. I remember I used to ask the dumbest questions to the IT folks, and then after a while, they were asking me questions. So that was fun.
So we've got something coming up here, and before we wrap up on time, I want to make sure we talk about it. We've got CompTIA's ChannelCon event is coming up in Las Vegas, and we actually have the road to ChannelCon, which we're going to be doing for a few weeks before, where we're actually taking a van, bus. I'm not sure which to call it, but it's coming from Gainesville. We're going up to CompTIA's office in Chicago and all the stops along the way, down through Texas and back over to Vegas. And this van actually has Don's image on one side and your image, James,
right,
on the other side. And first of all, how does that make you feel? That's got to be exciting.
It's kind of a yin and yang thing. I can't help but think of the merry pranksters in the 60s, or I guess it was the 50s, bringing the bus further across, from the east to the west coast, and all the Grateful Dead along with them. But it's kind of interesting, isn't it, to see a person's face on the side of there. Don, I think you're such a much better looking guy than I am. So
I'm just curious how many eggs are going to end up on there, or how many days it'll take before I have a mustache drawn on.
Well, I'm going to do it day one. I'm going to do it as something you can wipe off. Yeah, the little devil horns, the whole nine. But along the way, like I said, we're going to be making a lot of stops and meeting with people that are asking these very questions that we've been asking about. Hey, how do I get started? What do I do next? What's coming up? So, what is that? What is it that you like about getting out there and kind of meeting with the people like that and seeing all these different IT pros in all stages of their career?
I love the people's enthusiasm, and I love their curiosity, and it's fun to feed into that and basically say, hey, here are some of the things that you could do. Download VirtualBox, for example, or VMware or whatever, and start downloading versions of Windows legally and Linux, and start playing around with it. Grab an IoT device and tear it apart. If it's not too expensive, make sure it's not dad's or mom's or what have you, and start working on these things and see how they work. It's really exciting to see people also going, I want to build. I love it when students build their knowledge in any way, shape, or form. It's fun to be a teacher, and it's fun to be a part of that, because this stuff generates lives. I see people moving from one situation where they can't afford their own place, or the place that they have could be better, and I see them absolutely changing their lifestyle for the better. And I've also seen IT transform economies on a macro level. I've seen it over the last certainly 5 to 6 years that I've been at CompTIA. I've seen it even before then. Economies, whether they be an economy within the United States or an economy in Africa, absolutely be fundamentally affected, and I love to see it.
Well, thank you so much, James, for taking the time with us today. I know we got to be sensitive of your time, but
thanks.
I feel like this is one of those conversations that's like, this was just some guys sitting around the table and having a chat, and we could be doing this for 2 hours. So this is really great, and hopefully we can get you on here again and talk sometime in the future.
Anytime, man. And the next time, what we could do is a talk on interior decoration.
Yeah, we need to do. I can't remember. Is it Mary Kondo, the Netflix woman that comes in and really straightens things up? We can talk about that.
It's desperately needed over
here. I have to say it. Find the things that give you joy in your room, and let's focus on those. But
absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us today, and thank all of you for watching. But stay tuned, because we've got more coming up right after this. Hey IT pros, let IT Pro TV add food, drinks, and fun to your next meetup. Sysadmins, security groups, network admins, and more, tell us about your meetup and we may send you a meetup kit to make your meeting extra special. Your kit contains a gift card for refreshments, t-shirts, and stickers to give away, plus access codes for all of your group members to try IT Pro TV for free. Request a meetup sponsorship kit for your group today. Visit www.itpro.tv/events. All right, welcome back to Technado, and I gotta say, with his saying of pen test and blockchain there, I got Buzzword Bingo along with cryptocurrency and drone. You got how close are you? You got to be like one away. Right?
Yeah, I was. For
it's
some
like a
reason,
shotgun.
my card is all over the place.
Yeah.
So, nah, I wasn't even close.
Don just needs someone to say.
If only Edward Snowden had put on virtual reality glasses, and then he could have done robotic things as a service, and then Justin would have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, the
only.
pity is strong on this.
That'll be next week. That'll be next week. And you got a lot of blue up there.
I just
but-
needed the word encrypt, which I said like 4 times
Yeah.
that you guys never said. So
or if we did, you just weren't paying attention.
probably.
There's that as well.
I get distracted.
Yeah, with actually saying things about what's going on. Well, we want to let you know about something that's coming up shortly here from IT Pro TV later, well, I guess next month, actually, in July. We're doing the Road to ChannelCon, and that is a partnership with CompTIA for their ChannelCon event in Las Vegas. And we've got all the information about that. You can basically subscribe to our YouTube channels, both ours and CompTIA's, and you can see all the cool stuff going on. But I know we're going to be stopping at Atlanta, Montgomery, Indianapolis, Dallas, Las Vegas, Phoenix, some good places like that. And we have this amazing bus to do it in. And Don, can we take a look at your screen here and see that Don doesn't look uncomfortable at all next to a 10-foot version of himself plastered on the side of a bus there. But yeah, we've got the IT Pro TV side there, and we've got a CompTIA side with Dr. James Stanger, who we just had the interview with. He is on the opposite side because we'll be basically going to. Oh, you're not going to use the second one?
Oh, we can.
There it is. People are very afraid of running out with donuts there, but that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to go to these cities. We're going to meet up with companies that have asked us to come by, that are IT Pro TV members or CompTIA customers, and we're going to come in with donuts. We're going to have meetups, the whole deal. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to be on it a little bit. It sounds like maybe in the
At some point.
in the
I haven't
Midwest.
I haven't committed to dates
Yeah.
from me yet, but I will.
Yeah, I should be on somewhere in the Chicago to Dallas leg, and I don't know if Justin's going.
I don't know either. Maybe I should figure that out.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But also want to let you know about our next webinar coming up over at itpro.tv/webinars. It is When Disaster Strikes, an IT Pro's Guide to Disaster Planning. That's Thursday, July 11th with Don Pizzette here and Mike Roderick, and they'll be talking about all the steps you need to take. And this is a series, right? You're doing a couple disaster things?
That one I think is just going to be
This is the one.
two-part.
Oh, two-part,
So
okay.
yeah, they're not a. I don't like to think of it as a series.
A mini-series.
Yeah, that works.
I thought a miniseries was a minimum of 3 episodes.
Okay, you know what?
Fact.
However,
It's more than one.
I think that's very appropriate based on all this ransomware going on. Are you going to address ransomware in this?
A little bit, yeah.
We're also talking about natural disasters and things like that as we get into the heart of hurricane season down here in Florida. I know it's something that's always on our mind, and we've seen a lot of tornadoes and stuff already this year. So, yeah, it's a good thing to be ready for. So that's over at itpro.tv/webinars. And finally, want to let you know, if you are not an IT Pro TV member yet, there's still time. Like, time is running out. It's head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. We've got a coupon code there for 30% off your membership. Also, 7-day free trial and information about teams that are looking to sign up. That's at go.itpro.tv/Technado. Well, guys, another great week in the books. Congratulations to me on Bingo, and congratulations to you guys on a great live week here for anyone that has been watching that. There's been a lot of fun, but today, this afternoon, we're going to do, what's it called? Who Wants to Be
Who wants to be an IT pro?
an IT Pro? And so you're channeling your best Regis Philbin, and
It's like a Regis, Richard Dawson. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's,
and for those of you that haven't been able to see these two, we are going to be replaying them, and I know some of the better sketches are going up on YouTube as well. So we definitely have some fun. Was Jeopardy was yesterday?
yeah.
Jeopardy was
Yeah, I was
yesterday, yeah.
flying for
And
that,
then the day
so I missed
before we
that,
had
but-
Iron Tech.
Iron Tech, that was exciting, all the signs and fun. So yeah, definitely look for those things over on YouTube. But that's gonna do it, I guess, for us this week. But we will see you guys next week right here on Technado.